Philippines is in Southeast Asia. It is worth visiting. It is situated in the Western Pacific Ocean, and it consists of about 7,640 islands, literally, that are categorized into three main geographical divisions from north to south: Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And the entire Philippines covers an area of 300,000 kilometers or 120,000 square miles. And as of 2020, it had a population of around 109 million people, so a lot of them, making it the world's 12th most populous country. Manila is the nation's capital, which everyone knows, while the largest city is Quezon City. It is within the urban area of Metro Manila. Quezon City is where I was born. From a historical standpoint, so the earliest people who are known to have settled in the Philippines were called Negritos, and some of the earliest inhabitants. And then they were followed by the successive waves of Austronesian people who are coming from Taiwan. Then island kingdoms form, called one of them is called Kedatuans, and then Rajanatis, and then the Sultanatis. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer leading a fleet for Spain, marked the beginning of Spanish colonization in the Philippines. And in 1543, a Spanish explorer named Ruy Lopez de Villalobos named the island of the Philippines as called Las Islas Filipinas in honor of Philip II of Spain. It became part of the Spanish Empire for more than 300 years. In 1896, the Philippine Revolution started, which kind of just entwined with the 1898 Spanish-American War. Spain then ceded the territory to the United States, while Filipino rebels declared the First Philippine Republic. The Philippine-American War ended with the United States establishing control over the country, which they were able to maintain until the Japanese invasion of the islands during World War II. This was my grandfather, Lola Jose, who I'm proud to say that he served during World War II in the military. So following the liberation, the Philippines became independent in 1946, and then since then
is the removal of Marcos from power and installation of Aquino as the new president. So the People Power Revolution, also known as the EDSA Revolution, was a series of popular demonstrations in the Philippines, mostly in Metro Manila. This was from Feb 22 to 25, 1986. There was a sustained campaign of civil resistance against regime violence and electoral fraud. The non-violent revolution led to the departure of Ferdinand Marcos, the end of his 20-year presidential term, and the restoration of democracy in the Philippines. As you can see on the picture, there are hundreds of thousands of people filling up EDSA facing northbound towards the Boni Serrano Avenue EDSA intersection. This was taken Feb 1986. Photo credits to Wikipedia. And what caused the people to be like this? Number 1 is the assassination of Benigno Aquino Jr. in 1983. Second is the fraud during the 1986 snap presidential election. And the third is decades of oppressive and autocratic rule. And as a result of that People Power Revolution, opposition got their victory. Removal of Ferdinand Marcos.
The sovereign state has had major crazy tumultuous experience with democracy, and that included the overthrow of a dictator named the late President Ferdinand Marcos by the People Power Revolution. Yes, yes, that is a picture of President Ferdinand Marcos with Imelda Marcos and her impressive collection of about 1,200 pairs of designer shoes she left behind, presumably when she fled Philippines during People Power back in 1986. Anyway, the Philippines' position as an island country on the Pacific Ring of Fire is close to the equator, makes the country prone to earthquakes and typhoon, along with Japan and Mexico. So Philippines is considered to be one of the most visited countries in the world due to its best scuba diving resorts, beautiful beaches, hospitable people, cost of living, and generally cost for people who are visiting there. Visiting Philippines can be tricky though. You have to plan accordingly. If you want to go from one island to the other, you can take either the plane or a boat. The boat, which can take a little longer if you are on a limited time. So first stop is a flight from Manila to Sangat Island. It's a short flight from Manila to Coron, Francisco Reyes Airport. A driver from the dive resort will pick you up, drive you, take a small boat, then to Sangat Island. So Sangat Island is a dive resort filled with good and hospitable people. The island is supposedly owned by a Filipina and a British and her British husband.
Pwede bang sa inyo wag mo na akong papuntahin? Kung sistema natin ay ganun pa din, at least alam ko na kung anong dapat kong gawin. Para hindi na ako babiyahe, sayang pamasahe, pati ang tsokolate sa'yo. Sa dami-dami mong sinabi, mahabang pa sa kalye, aasa lang pala ko sa'yo. Kaya sana di na lang nagsulat ng love letter sa'yo. Mag-aantay na lang, makakahanap din ng much better kaysa sa'yo. May nakita kong isang babae, di ko malimutan ang kanyang imahe. Ano ba ang iyong pangalan noong nakita kita? Ako'y di mapakali, gustong mahawakan ng iyong mga kamay. Hanggang ngayon hindi mapalagay, sana ikaw ay makasabay. At nang malaman ko ang pangalan mo, at nang ikaw ay makilala ko, baby, wag ka na mag-alilangan pa. Alam mo naman talaga na kailangan ka. Ang katulad mo'y matagal kong hinahanap, at gusto kong makita, gusto kong makita. Baby, pauwi na ako, ako'y pauwi na. Baby, pauwi na ako, miss na kita. Baby, pauwi na ako, ako'y pauwi na. Hindi ka na malulungkot, malapit na ako, baby, pauwi na ako. Ayokong makita sa mga mata mo na nalulungkot ka, kaya gumawa na ako ng paraan upang mapawi ang kalungkutan. Kasi naman lagi kang nagkakaganyan, ayoko naman na ikaw ay masaktan. Ramdam ko ang pakiramdam ng nahihirapan, kaya naman ayoko nang iparamdam sa'yo. Malapit na ako, konting oras na lang ay magsasama na tayo. Malapit na ako, dyan sa tabi mo, konting tiis na lang, mahal, mawawala na ang
And then the next agenda to the travel is to Sangat Island to Baguio, a flight from Francisco Reyes Airport to Manila. We hired a driver from Manila who drove us throughout the entire Luzon. So going to the north to Baguio, hiring a driver to drive from Manila to Baguio is a blessing. It's very affordable. Just make sure that you pick the right company where you can hire their driver for a week or so. So traffic is horrible in Manila, so I don't recommend anyone who's visiting the Philippines to be driving in the Philippines, the country itself, especially Manila. Then the drive to the north is pretty easy, but a very long one. So Baguio is considered the vacation spot for people in the Philippines. The Mansion House, also known as the Mansion, is the official summer palace of the President of the Philippines. Baguio is a highly urbanized city in the Cordillera administrative region of the Philippines. It is known as the summer capital of the Philippines due to its cool climate. It's located at 4,810 feet, about 1,470 meters above sea level, and some of them often cited as 5,050 feet or 1,540 meters. The Baguio is also the summer capital of the Commonwealth of the Philippines and the home of the Philippine Military Academy. Next trip is the Baguio. Next agenda is Baguio-Sagada. Sagada, officially the municipality of Sagada, is a fifth-class municipality in the province of Mountain Province, Philippines. According to the 2015 census, it has like around 11,000 people. It is close to Bontoc, the provincial capital. Sagada is famous for its hanging coffins. It's a traditional way of burying people that is still utilized. Not everyone is qualified to be buried this way. Among other things, one had to have been married and had like grandchildren. Next agenda is Sagada to Rice Terraces. The Banaue Rice Terraces are terraces that are like carved into the mountains of Banaue, Ifugao in the Philippines, and you can also see rice terraces and across Asia like Thailand. It's known that the rice terraces were started by the indigenous people, so their ancestors, and they're passed on from one generation to the other. So the terraces are occasionally called the eighth wonder of the world. It is commonly thought that the terraces were built with very minimal equipment. It's all largely by hand, and they are fed by an ancient irrigation system from the rainforest above the terraces. So you guys didn't know this, but I didn't know it either, but I found that in the ending scene of the movie Avengers Infinity War, the film's main villain Thanos, played by Josh Brolin, was seen walking out of a small hut. If you've seen the movie, to watch a sunset on a vista of mountains and rice paddies. The Bangkok-based Indochina production confirmed that the image is of the Banaue rice terraces. Pretty cool.
Kaya sa pagtayo ko sa umaga ay hanap ko na ngiti mo na nagpasaya kakaiba. Nagbago ng lahat-lahat, salamat at natagpuan kita.
Kanina pa kita tinitingnan, kanina pa kasi ko nang gigigil dyan. Kanina ko ba kasi iniisip na di ako hindi ka titigman.
Huwag mo na lang sanang isipin na katulad ako nila. Ang gusto ko lang naman talaga sa'yo ay mahalin ka, baby.
Nadarang na naman sa'yo nga boy. Bakit ba lagi gusto kita magkasama sa habang buhay? Pero kailangan muna maghinay-hinay.
Alam ko naman kasalanan ko, o sinayang ko.
Basta sa akin kasama mo na, di na ko maghahanapan ng
Huwag
iba.
mong pansinin ang mga nagkatingin sa ating dalawa, sa ating dalawa.
Next stop is Rice Terraces to Palawan. The Puerto Princesa Subterranean River National Park is a protected area in the Philippines. The park is located in the St. Paul mountain range on the western coast of the island of Palawan, and north of the city of Puerto Princesa, and contains the Puerto Princesa subterranean river. It was listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1999 and voted as supposedly a new 7 Wonders of Nature in 2012. And in Palawan, there is a resort there. It's really cool. It's owned by a Filipina who's married to a German guy who owns this resort. It's called Bambua Nature Park Resort. It's a secluded place. It's in the Sabang area of just outside the Puerto Princesa National Park, and all the facilities are located in this very nice garden landscape, and it's farmland and jungle.
Gusto, hindi mo sapat.
Masaya na ako.
Bakit ganito? Ikaw lang gusto, dalhin kita sa paraiso.
Kay ganda ang binibini, ikaw ang gusto ko, walang ibang pinili. Oh, kay ganda ang binibini, ikaw ang gusto ko, walang ibang pinili.
Next stop is Palawan and back to Manila. So of course you can't leave Philippines without visiting the family.
Kapag naaalala ko ang mga araw na magkasama tayong dalawa, ngiti at tuwa sa aking mga mata, ganun na pala tayo dati kasaya. Yung tipong kapag tayo nakatitigan.
So Philippines is highly recommended to visit. I highly recommend it. You can literally spend a year here and not be able to see everything. English is spoken 90% of the time, because there are some there are about 120 to 187 languages spoken in the Philippines. They're called dialects depending on the method of how you classify them. I mean, historically, Spanish was the official language of the Philippines for more than 3 centuries under the Spanish colonial rule, and some of the older Filipinos still speak Spanish, and it became like the main language of the Philippines in the 19th and early 20th centuries. And following the American occupation of the Philippines, English then was taught in school after the 1940s. So under the U.S. occupation civil regime, English began to be taught in schools. And by 1901, public education used English as the medium of instruction. So the 1935 Constitution added English as an official language along with the Spanish language. Thanks for watching. It was a great experience, well worth the visit. Consult the embassy depending on what nationality you are for further instructions regarding the pandemic.